Good evening, Los Angeles, and thank you again for joining us. I know that these days are tough and feel dark, but I hope all of you have had some sunshine in your day today, that each one of you has seen the hope and the help that is out there at a time when our greatest fears and the unknown lies ahead. Know that every single day we are working hard to do everything we can to give you information, to tell you the truth, to level with you, and to marshal every resource we have in Los Angeles to collectively come together and preserve the precious lives around us. Lives of our family members, lives of our neighbors, lives of one another. The things that make us smile and laugh, and the things that will make us smile and laugh once again. That's why it has been so important for all of us to stay at home. And we have great results again today. Thank you. Every day you stay at home, I hope it gets a little bit easier to adjust. And know that every single person who decides to continue to adhere to this, and we need 100% adherence, saves a life, somebody you may never know, somebody who will never know your name, but one day you will be walking past in this city and think to yourself, my behavior made sure that she or he is with us today. That's why we keep fighting to bring on more testing, to support our medical personnel with the equipment that they need, and doing everything we can to lobby at every level of government for the economic relief and the medical support we need here in Los Angeles to get through these tough, tough days. That's why we've acted to keep only essential businesses open. I know through too many conversations and letters and emails and phone calls, people who I know, how difficult this has been for both employees and those employers who love what they've built, small businesses and restaurants, neighborhood shops, people who wonder, will I ever have normal back? It's too early to know, but I know that normal will come back sooner the more that we take swift and complete action now. These actions are all designed to protect you, to save your life, and to ease your fears while we get through this unprecedented time. For all we've done locally, though, I've said almost every night, we need our Washington leaders to step up to the plate. And it is a good night tonight in that we have finally a breakthrough there. And in many ways, they have met the challenge by extending the deadline for filing of our taxes, by giving people more time to fill out the census, ensuring that Medicare patients can use telehealth free of charge to meet with their doctors, and assuring us that no ICE operations will happen at hospitals and clinics. Just this afternoon, the Department of Education announced it would freeze collections and wage garnishments on federal student loans in default for the next 2 months. And thank you to Governor Newsom, a coalition of banks in California agreed to a 90-day grace period on mortgage payments for homeowners affected by COVID-19. People have asked those questions. If some can't pay the rent, what happens? If some can't meet the mortgages, what happens? And we've needed our banks to step up. And it speaks volumes, unlike what we saw 10 years ago, that we are in this together. Whatever we do for banks, we have to do for their customers. Whatever this country does for all of us, we have to do together. These are all critical steps forward for our people, for our families, for our youth, for our seniors. But we've needed representatives in D.C. to go further, to unite around what some are calling a stimulus package, but I hardly can look at this as a stimulus package. It's a survival package. An economic survival package for workers, for families, for businesses, for all of us to be able to get through these months while we do what we need to do to stop this disease. We've needed support for our businesses, investments in our healthcare system, emergency aid for our local efforts that sometimes feel so lonely and apart. But today we've seen a bipartisan glimmer of hope, an agreement on a massive $2 trillion economic survival package and aid package to meet this moment. I won't go into every detail, but I do want to share with folks who are wondering what's in it, and they're finalizing some of the language. And the bill isn't perfect. It excludes, for instance, our immigrant population, which we still will have to feed, make sure that they are housed, make sure that folks have the ability to deal with this moment, no matter what their immigration status is. But this is a step in the right direction. You'll hear a lot of details in the days to come, but let me share with you what I know. Based on what we know right now, we're going to see about $400 million coming to our airport to cover lost revenue and to continue operations for workers there. More than $700 million to Metro here in Los Angeles and federal relief funds to keep our operations going and to pay the people who are those employees. Tens of millions of dollars in community development block grants to use with partners in our communities to help the worst off, folks who already help our seniors and the poorest and the unemployed and others who need our help. And another $32 million or more in emergency solutions grants. These are homeless grants that we can use together with the $19 million we got from the state, representing over $50 million to meet what we are trying to do in this city, to be an example of how many people we can house who are on the streets, to protect them from COVID-19 and protect everyone from its spread. Most importantly, though, this bill means immediate relief for everyday Angelenos and Americans. For low-income, working, and middle-class Americans, they will receive $1,200 per individual, $2,400 per couple, and $500 per child for the folks who need it most. That's why I call this an economic survival bill, because while it's not enough, it maybe will ensure that some folks will be able to get through the next month or two, and it will also help our small businesses by guaranteeing loans and especially guaranteeing them for folks who keep their employees on the payroll. We lobbied very hard with a coalition of mayors and cities and counties and states around the nation, and I want to thank our leaders in Washington for moving these steps forward even as we ask for more and make sure that nobody is not lost. As a result, too, there will be $150 billion in this in direct aid for states and for local governments to cover the expenses that we are fronting related to COVID-19. Let me just tell you what that's like behind the scenes every single day. I hear there's a contract for masks, we go and grab it. We hear about new tests, we double down and get them. We stand up our own testing centers even though the city has never done healthcare outside, of course, our great paramedics in the fire department, and so much more. We haven't waited for permission. We've gone ahead and spent emergency dollars, but knowing that those will be replenished and help us be able to double and triple those efforts gives me a little bit of a sigh of relief in what has been incredibly stressful days. On top of that, the federal measure will try to do right by workers, households, and health systems directly impacted by our pandemic, significantly boosting our unemployment benefits, putting more money in the pockets of workers who have been hardest hit by the crisis and are already out of work. It will also kick off what's being called a Marshall Plan for our health system. And boy, that can't come soon enough. If anything we've learned in this crisis, it's that we have to be prepared. And as I've shared with you, this crisis isn't over just in this first explosion. Until there's a vaccine or until we have drugs that can treat this, we may see a second or even a third explosion of this, as we do in the flu season. We may see that in the fall, as early as October or November. But this will help us pour billions of dollars into ensuring our doctors and nurses are protected with the gear they need so they can still come to work, and that our hospitals are ready with what they need to defeat the virus. And I want to be clear, the worst days are still ahead. It's a tough thing for me to say, but we look at these projections and we still are, as our hearts break for what we see in Italy, for what we see in Spain, for what we see in New York City. It's coming here. We've taken actions earlier and swifter, but nobody is immune from this virus. And so it's coming, and this money will help us prepare. This legislation, protect jobs in our aviation industry, both companies and the workers that we insisted also not be forgotten. Provide support to our schools and our school districts to make sure your kids are educated, and keep construction going on affordable housing, a crisis that we have to address after this one as well. Even though this is a massive piece of legislation, it's just the start of this process of dealing with the urgent needs that we have to keep our residents and our businesses afloat. And we're going to keep working with our partners in DC and in Sacramento to bring this coalition together and to keep getting what we need to keep our people alive. Many Angelenos can't wait for the legislative process to run its course, for the final I's to be dotted and the T's to be crossed and the money to flow. People are losing their jobs and their paychecks now. People need to pay their bills now. People need to feed their families now. And I know for so many of you out there who were already on the line, it feels like you've already tipped over that. If your employer has cut your hours or shut down operations in this crisis, you should apply for unemployment benefits immediately. The state and our governor waived the 1-week waiting period, typically that you have to wait for. You can apply the minute you need that support, and you should. Visit the state's Employment Development Department at edd.ca.gov. And if you need help navigating the application process, filling out the forms if you've never done this before, you can find information how to do that at one of our city's WorkSource centers. Just call 311 to reach your nearest location, and those are essential government operations that have stayed open to make sure our workers can get the relief they need. And remember, again, as I've shared here just a few days ago, we launched a portal for those of you who have lost work and need to work. It's called the LA Jobs Portal at lajobsportal.org. And it's helping underemployed and unemployed Angelenos search and apply for jobs, access emergency aid, and get other assistance and resources in the midst of this crisis. I've talked to some of you, and I know that it feels like the city doesn't have enough money to help everybody, but my word to you is we're going to spend whatever money we have to help people directly, to supplement what's coming out of Washington, to fill the gap until then, and to continue making sure that families don't sink further. And here's the bottom line: no matter what happens, we are here to help you get through this. Your health, your psychological and spiritual well-being, that is my responsibility. It is our collective responsibility as your representatives. And if this means the best thing we can do for you to survive is not getting sick in the first place, that's where we are focused. It also means very tough choices for all of us, wherever we are. Some of them won't be popular, but that will never discourage me from taking them swiftly and doing the right thing on your behalf. The city is constantly looking at those measures and taking on additional measures to strengthen the physical distancing that will make or break our response to this disease and cut back gathering as much as possible. And these measures are working. The good news is we keep getting the data. One piece of data that I saw was that LA County residents here moved the least of anybody in Southern California. When we move less, that is like winning the gold medal. I want to see those numbers continue to come down. Not everybody needs to go to the market. Not everybody needs to go out all the time. Make sure that you are, whenever possible, staying at home because you are safer at home. We recently saw also another company called Unicast, which released a social distancing scorecard for the nation. And Los Angeles residents received an A grade due to a 53% reduction in average distance traveled. Doesn't mean you can't get your exercise, do those jumping jacks and calisthenics. I know I've gone back to my old Navy exercise routine, which you can do 5 things with no weights in place. Each one of us will find our own hacks to get through this. But let's see if we can get that number down even more than the 53% so far. If that's an A, let's see what next week's A will look like too. And while an A grade is good news, it doesn't mean we can let up our guard. We're evaluating the situation all the time, and so tonight we're going to take an additional step to keep Angelenos safe. Runyon Canyon is one of our city's greatest treasures. It's a park that if you haven't had the joy of walking there, it is LA. Seeing folks who are tourists, people who are natives, together, seeing some of the most beautiful views in Los Angeles. But with this pandemic, we've seen it's become too dangerous. We saw the images of packed trails over the weekend. Coronavirus doesn't care if you're riding the subway or if you're out for a hike. If you're not practicing safe physical distancing, then case numbers will continue to rise rapidly, and you're more likely to get sick. The more people that are sick, the more people will die. It's that simple. That's why this morning we closed Runyon Canyon. It's not something easy or pleasurable to do, but it's the right thing to do. And we're considering more closures of popular outdoor areas, in addition to shutting down sports facilities at our parks across LA, as well as parking lots at city beaches. And we will follow county guidance from public health professionals on all of these. I also want to address that there have been rumors that LAPD is stopping Angelenos for exercising or leaving their homes. That's simply not the case. And I want to thank our officers, by the way, who have been out there. They've been doing amazing things. For those of you who don't follow LAPD on Instagram, I saw last night that they found somebody price gouging a container of hand sanitizer for $80. They shut that down let that person know that that's a crime and took care of it. They're doing heroic work, reminding people to comply. They're there if people refuse to. But compliance for non-essential business closures will be enforced. I know that the Runyon Canyon closure will make headlines, and I hope folks heed the call to stay at home, because everybody is safer at home. Additionally, I've directed general managers in our departments, effective immediately, to take any action necessary within their budgets, to procure supplies, materials, construction, equipment, services, and labor necessary to safeguard life, health, or property. This might sound small, but this is a big deal. We haven't just reduced red tape, we've completely eliminated it. That means that rec and parks staff at emergency shelters can get hand sanitizer more quickly. It means that workers at LAX can get vital personal protective equipment as they interface with travelers coming in from around the world. It means that sanitation and water and power crews making house calls can get the gloves and the masks that they need to stay healthy and safe while they serve you and make sure that our city continues to function. And I want to thank the more than 1,000 city employees who have stepped up as part of our disaster service worker program. It's in addition to the entire city family that's working nonstop to ensure that Los Angeles continues to operate. And it's vital that we protect those city employees who are protecting us. And last night I announced a one-stop, easy-to-use, one-stop portal where medical professionals could submit their experience information and sign up to help, together with the county. And I'm so proud to report that less than 24 hours later, 1,174 Angelenos, doctors, nurses, technicians, LVNs, nurse practitioners have stepped forward, and there's still room for more folks. So if you didn't hear about this, this is the first time that you're hearing about it, go to coronavirus.lacity.org/medical worker. That's coronavirus.lacity.org/medical worker. If you'd like to offer support in response to COVID-19, pro bono or paid, fill out your basic information and we'll follow up with what you need. And we're sharing that with the county and other cities that need that information. It is an amazing outpouring, and I thank you from the bottom of my heart. We're taking these actions to be prepared, to meet this moment, to ensure that we can take care of our city no matter what happens. And let me clarify one other thing that's out there. I've heard from folks who have seen military vehicles and activity around the city, and at this time, the National Guard has not been mobilized to the city of Los Angeles. They have armories, they travel through Los Angeles, but officially has not been mobilized. There are movements of troops all around our state, and to support our efforts, we have asked the governor for National Guard support for our testing sites as we anticipate asking for medical units and supplies from the military reserve to accommodate hospital overflow and other patient care planning. And the Army Corps of Engineers, which is busy in New York doing things like standing up hospital beds in a convention center there, where that availability is there, Los Angeles will be calling on them too. If and when National Guard or military units are deployed to the streets of LA, trust me, I'll let you know. So all the texts and all the rumors, discount them. I'll let you know right here when there are folks coming to serve us on our streets from both the National Guard and the military reserve. This is your city. I work for you. We serve you. And in this toughest of times, that has been brought home in such a powerful way. Because it's not just a mayor or a city employee that serves you. We found a way to serve each other, to practice physical distancing, but to enhance social and spiritual connection. And as your mayor, my priority has always been to make sure the city works for you no matter what. That's been the work for the last 7 years, to bring Los Angeles back to the basics, to try to solve problems, to make our systems more robust and more efficient. And that's why, as our daily routine has changed, much of ours here at City Hall has stayed the same. Throughout our city family, they're still picking up your trash, clearing the sewers, fixing the streetlights, sweeping the streets, trimming the trees, removing graffiti, patrolling our communities, and making sure your streets are smooth and your sidewalks are accessible. It's why construction work continues around the city, on our supportive housing pipeline, on our critical infrastructure and utilities, and on our bridge home shelters that are part of our plans to make sure homelessness one day is a thing of the past in Los Angeles. And I'll say it again, our highest goal is to keep you and your family safe and healthy. As your city government continues to operate, we're making sure that new changes every day enhance that, and it's reflected in the way that we deliver city services. Last week, I announced that parking enforcement would be relaxed, that we would guarantee no one be penalized for doing the right thing and staying at home. We relaxed enforcement for street sweeping in residential areas, rush hour restrictions, non-metered time limits in commercial zones, and we stopped ticketing and towing abandoned and oversized vehicles. We also made sure that in a moment when many are facing a difficult financial landscape, there will be no Department of Transportation fine increases for 60 days at least, and everyone will receive extension of payments due until June 1st. But tonight, let me add something else to that, because some folks might be due to renew their DMV registration right now, just as we're asking people to stay home, just as you're counting precious pennies to feed your family or to pay your bills. So beginning this week, the city will not cite nor tow vehicles with expired registrations. Make no mistake, we're still enforcing parking across the city in those areas that are not exempted. But our enforcement is focused on allowing our essential workers to get around quickly and assisting those businesses that need the turnaround so that they can survive, especially those that are doing takeout and delivery. Maintenance and street repair areas still, anyone blocking emergency access to hospitals and other places, and anywhere with temporary no parking signs posted. Additionally, though, LAPD will not give tickets to any drivers with expired driver's licenses during this time. Angelenos need the essentials to get through this crisis. Every bit will count. And so every day we're hearing your suggestions and others. We're scouring and trying to brainstorm ways we can save money for families and take the stress of this moment away so we can focus on doing what we need to do to stay home. And if you are able to pay your utility bill, of course, you should. But as long as the emergency period continues, the city will not shut off your water or power for the residents of Los Angeles. We will not impose any late fees during this period. And you can sign up for a flexible payment plan online. And if you're eligible, I encourage you to sign up for the income qualified discount, something before this crisis you might not have qualified for, but do now. If you need an extension, also you can get one. All of these things are available at ladwp.com. And I want to thank our DWP workers for their heroic work during this crisis too. Every one of these changes is about the same principle, that you are safer at home, that your lives are more protected indoors. And it's our responsibility to remove any obstacles that stand between you and your safety. This city is here for you. I am here for you. And the 40,000 employees of this city and so many other professionals from our school district to our county to, for many of you, the city where you live in. And Los Angeles, one thing has never been more clear than it is right now. You are here for each other. This is an all-hands-on-deck moment. There are going to be nights when I come and talk to you, and there are going to be terrible nights. Some of you will be mourning loved ones in the hospital or even lost. We have not seen the darkest days, but we will march forward, and we will march forward together. This morning, I was on the phone with a rabbi who was talking about Psalms. We all know the psalm that talks about walking through the shadow of the valley of death. And he said, shadows are only shadows because there is light. They are evidence that there is light out there. And so as you feel this darkness, know that whether it's the love of people around us, our own discipline to stay at home, or brave workers that are out there, making sure we can get what we need to get as many people through, that we will walk through that valley together, and that there is light, evidence of it every single day, inside each one of us. For those who can afford it, it means helping each other out, buying a meal, donating to the United Way or the Mayor's Fund. And I want to thank somebody who stepped up big time, two people, Eric and Susan Smith, who are the owner of Harbor Freight Tools. Eric's a Valley boy like me who grew up here and grew a business that is now known across this country. And they have stepped up today to say that they will donate $1 million to help Angelenos in greatest need, to help healthcare workers get child care so that they can continue to serve us in some of the most dangerous conditions during this crisis. I'm so grateful, and Amy and I are so grateful to you for your donation and those other donations that have come forward. Whether it's $2 or whether somebody can give more, we are all digging deep to make sure each one of us can get through this. From Wilmington to Woodland Hills, from Boyle Heights to Brentwood, north, south, and east, west, this is a united city, and we don't have borders around our city. From San Bernardino to Ventura, from the Antelope Valley all the way down to Orange County, we feel the love that encircles us here in Southern California. And those stories we see are all around us, like the church in South LA that's given away hundreds of care packages to single parents, low-income families, and seniors with food, diapers, canned goods, the essentials to get their families through this crisis. Or the impromptu coalition on the east side that kicked into action and created a delivery system for food pantries in their area, coordinating volunteers and pooling resources to pick up food and drop off bags. Folks on motorcycles that are going cross town to pick up a couple dozen masks and delivering them to medical personnel who need them. And the LA restaurant executive who saw that dining rooms across the city were closing and in just 48 hours started the online movement, #TheGreatAmericanTakeout. And I remind you, it's a great night for takeout. Pick up the phone when you're done with this. Call your favorite restaurant. Keep them going. And now we're encouraging folks around the nation to do the same, helping to keep the lights on, the doors open, and people employed. We are in this together. This is our moment, Los Angeles, to lead together, to come together, and I've never been more proud to call Los Angeles my home. So I thank you that during these difficult days, and there will be many more ahead of us, for your spirit, the way you're lifting up each other and lifting up our city. And know that your city is here for you every step of the way. So as I say each night, stay safe, stay healthy, stay home. Strength and love, Los Angeles. Thank you, and with that I'll take questions and then I'll speak in Spanish.
Hi, Mayor. We have a question from Alex Michael with Fox 11 News. Please go ahead.
Alex, you're always lucky to be first. You must get on the phone early.
Yeah, I'm trying to be aggressive to talk with you. Thank you appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you, Alex.
Mayor Garcetti, let's talk for a moment about the timing of all this.
Yes.
Because we know you spoke with Business Insider earlier suggesting that it could be 2 months where this all is going to be lasting. Where do you get that from? What are the models you're seeing showing?
Sure.
And is what we're seeing in New York a preview of what we're likely going to be seeing here in Los Angeles?
Absolutely, Alex, and that straight talk is what I've tried to bring to this crisis, that folks who think that we're going to be done in a couple weeks, it's simply not that case anywhere in the world that's been afflicted. The only place that's having a lifting of orders like the ones we have are in Wuhan, and that's going to be in April. That will have been 3.5 months in a place with pretty tight restrictions. I'm not suggesting that we necessarily, they were the first city. They didn't know to do things before this started. We did. It could be less than that, but it is difficult for me to see any scenario in which this is less than a couple months. And just as we took actions, my mantra, as you know, was when it feels wrong, that's the right moment. When it feels right, by then it's too late. It will be the same on the back end. There will be some who say, oh, look, the curve is flattening a little bit, let's just open everything up. And we're seeing in places that relax it even a little bit that it can spike right back up very quickly. We have to be disciplined, not because I like to be, not because I have information nobody else does, but if you look at it across the board, it's very clear that this will take time, it will require discipline, and we will not in Los Angeles lift those orders any earlier than is necessary, guided by public health professionals. So we do projections. I looked at a projection. I found a piece of paper I had done 10 days ago at the beginning of this, looking at the rate of increase in LA County, and I estimated what it would be moving forward, and it's almost dead on accurate. So we are about 6 days away from numbers, maybe 12 at the outset if our earlier distancing measures work, from where New York City is. I want to be clear too, and we'll try to get you more exacting statistics, but the county, we estimate already before we're seeing a bunch of COVID-19 patients in there, that our bed capacity, is, depending on whether it's ICU beds or overall beds, 75 to 90% filled. That shouldn't alarm people yet because unfortunately, that's where we often are. But it should alarm us, period, that we don't have the reserves, and we're working very quickly to make sure we have more beds and can prepare and help the county and other cities for that as well. So people really need to, I think, get ready, prepare yourself for that, plan for it, whether it's economically and financially or whether it's just psychologically, and certainly for our health, be prepared to stay at home. Thanks, Alex.
Thank you, and I'll remind everyone that if you wish to ask a question, please press 1 then 0 on your telephone keypad, and if you are using a speakerphone, please pick up the handset before pressing the numbers. We have a question from Hugo Govman with Hub LA. Please go ahead.
Hi, Hugo.
Hi, Mayor Garcetti. Can you comment on the COVID-19 response deal reached by Congress late yesterday? Additionally, there's money in the proposed bill for homelessness. How's the city going to specifically use that money?
Right. So, as I mentioned, we think it's about $32 million that will come in what's called ESG grants, something that we get each year, but these are an emergency allocation further of those. Those are emergency solutions grants, they're called. It used to be emergency shelter grants. So they're primarily used for shelter. We hope we can use those for the hotel rooms we're working on with the county and state. That's 600 that have already been identified and leased. We're hoping to get that to 2,000 and upwards. For, of course, the shelters that we've stood up with best practices from public health in our recreation centers. The first 9 of those are at capacity. 13 will be open by weekend end, and we can go up to as many as 42 of those. And we'll also be looking at our first responders and LASA, our homeless services outreach workers on the streets. I'd like to also see whether it's flexible enough for us to be able to do the testing on the streets as testing capacity picks up. In places like Skid Row, I think that's absolutely critical to public health. And I've always given a huge shout out to Barbara Ferrer and her staff, really extraordinary folks at the county level. But we're working with them to figure out what is that practice, the test that can be done on site, for instance, without having to be sent someplace and then you have to find that person the next day, which can be more challenging on the streets. That would be a great use of those too. But we're waiting. A lot of the Washington language is literally being written while we speak right now. So we know the broad categories, but we don't know the specifics. And we would be willing to combine those $32 million with the $19 million that we do already have in hand from the state. It's going to go towards housing, towards isolation units, towards health care for our unhoused. Thank you. Next question.
And we have a question from Claudia Pashuta with KNX Radio. Please go ahead.
Hi, Claudia.
Hi, Eric. I know that before all this, the city was looking at a potential budget shortfall of... Hello?
We can hear you.
Hello?
We can hear you.
Sorry.
Great.
Just
Don't worry.
Make sure you can hear me. Potential budget shortfall of several $100 million. Can you talk about what you think this might do to the city's economy,
Sure.
and especially with the lack of sales revenue coming in during the crisis?
Absolutely. Thank you, Claudia. Look, my first priority is to save lives. We have the biggest reserve fund in our city's history. It is about double what it was before the 2008 crisis, but this is going to be a more extreme crisis, and we hope a less long-lasting one over the period of years. But right now, I can't justify not using that money. To use the reserve funds, obviously anything comes from the state and the federal government. We have budget folks that are looking at that right now, and I've told all our departments to not, we have a hiring freeze we put in place, and to not do anything that's non-essential to city services that are critical or to the COVID-19 fight. We've repurposed dollars that we're going to other programs to help small businesses, et cetera. And of course, we can only spend what we have. But I'm confident that we will be able to use those dollars in the short term. We will hope that most of those, and have many indications that much of that work that we do can be FEMA reimbursed. But you're exactly right. When we come up for air, there will be less revenues, there will be a bigger gap, and we will have to make, as we've done in years past, the necessary cuts and balance the budget. I'm very proud that over the last 7 years we've balanced the budget every single year, made our credit rating go up, our reserve accounts grow bigger, both in absolute and percentage terms, and that work will continue. But you have reserve funds precisely for emergencies. This is that moment. We have the reserve fund that's much bigger than any gap we had to close this year. So we have money that we can spend. We will spend it because it will save lives. Next question, please.
And a question from Steve Gregory with KFI Radio. Please go ahead.
Hi, Steve.
Thank you very much. Good evening, Eric. Thanks again for doing this tonight. I wanted to ask you real quickly if you could give us any insight to the emergency city council meeting on Friday, and also, has anyone in your administration or on the city council tested positive?
Not that I know of. I can't confirm for all 15 of them, not that I know of. I know that the City Council is working out some of the mechanisms for doing their meeting technologically while keeping people safe, the public and each of the members of the council. So I'm glad that they're having that meeting on Friday. I know that they have literally hundreds of motions. I've been calling regularly all the council members, and they've really been extraordinary friends, advisors, activists, hustling to help businesses stay open, helping out with everything from testing to small business loans, et cetera. They've done a heroic job. But I know that they're going to sit down, and wherever possible, I've asked them, is there anything legislatively that you need done that I can just do through executive order? And that's what I've been doing, for instance, on the eviction moratorium, on some of the restrictions we put in place, et cetera. And so I look forward to continuing to work with them. I don't believe anybody's tested positive that I've heard of, which isn't a rumor to start that somebody is. Other than that, I'm really glad that they will be able to carry on the people's business. I think that's critically important, and I hope the public will understand. Those meetings will be a little bit more difficult, but we will abide by the aspects of the Brown Act that have not been waived for all of the meetings we do, whether it's City Council, commissions, or any of our boards. Thanks for the question.
And we'll go to Ed Laskos with Fox 11 News. Please go ahead.
Mr. Mayor, you've been talking about the desperate need to get more beds up and running.
Yes.
Any plans or talk, if you can, please, about possibilities of opening up some of the closed sports venues around the city, Staples Center, other locations, to try to house some of these beds?
Absolutely. Look, any place is on the table. I think you go to a place like Staples, it's a pretty small space compared to the convention center or other things. But absolutely, whether it's the hotels and motels who need our help badly right now, and at the beginning, some who were saying, well, we don't know if we want to take patients. Many of them have now said, absolutely, we would take patients, people who need isolation and quarantine, folks that aren't deeply symptomatic, or even if we want to set up in some places with medical personnel, the ability to monitor folks who have some symptoms, but there isn't an emergency room bed or there isn't a hospital bed available for them. So everything's on the table. We're looking at the convention center together with the county, just as you've seen in New York City. That's a great space, and there's no conventions going on. We've looked at sports venues, and I want to thank the sports teams. I had a conference call with all of our LA sports teams, and no matter who you root for, everybody was united when it comes to COVID-19. The Rams just did their drive yesterday. The Dodgers kicked in money to the Mayor's Relief Fund that we talked about, and so many others have stepped up in big, big ways. So we will use whatever spaces and places. There's also theaters that are available, sound stages. We've had some folks from studios reach out. Sound stages have their own ventilation. You can hang things that are industrial from them that could be for our medical equipment. So we're looking at all those, have a team at our Emergency Operations Center, and helping out the county, who I know is doing the same, so that we work hand in glove with them. Thank you. Next question, please.
We're going to Allison Cohen with Los Feliz Ledger. The line is open.
Hey, Allison. How you doing?
I'm great. Thank you, Mayor. We have some questions about the microloan program that was recently started. When we talked with someone regarding that program, we were told it would be a minimum 45-day turnaround, provided you filled out the application correctly. We filled out the application. The portal was easy to use. The questions were impossible to answer. There were no instructions. And when we called to ask questions, we were told that staff had not even seen the application yet and therefore couldn't help. We were referred to a subcontractor who was helpful, who ultimately then said a great many of the questions on the application weren't applicable and were not needed. We think 45 days for the microloan is too many days, and we'd like to find out if that can be rushed forward and if the process can be simplified and instructions can be added to the process.
Absolutely, and thank you. We looked at that immediately. We're trying to figure out ways not only to simplify it, but the order that I announced today that allows departments to be able to do things more quickly. Those funds are federal funds that we had, some of them, and so there are requirements with them. So we're trying to get that waived so we can do that as quickly as possible in a matter of days instead of weeks. So 100% in the first couple days, and you might have filled it out right away. Of course, folks are figuring out how to work at home. We think we have that settled. So we'll follow up with you directly, and anybody else who now calls in will be able to have that sort of assistance. And the best news of today, too, in the package for small businesses was that Small Business Administration now has been greenlit. I always said we had pennies compared to their dollars. We have pennies compared to their millions of dollars. And they put forward a substantial part of this package will be for those loans, too, that hopefully hand in hand. We wanted this to be microloans that could bridge people while you get bigger ones, and those were part of the package, the bipartisan package in Congress. So, but we'll follow up with you directly, Allison, okay? Next question, please.
Thank you. We'll go to Rosa Ordaz with KNBC4 News. Please go ahead.
Hi, Rosa.
Hello, Mayor. Thank you. Our reporter Beverly White and I are asking this question. Can you again clarify the city park closure policy? Is it unique to Los Angeles, or is it comparable to what LA County is doing?
So right now our park playgrounds are closed. All of our sports activities are closed. Our golfing is closed. We're looking for direction from the county on everything. I just talked with Catherine Barger. The beaches and the parks, we're hoping they have direction for the entire county, so it'll be the same. We're shutting down Runyon, and we're looking, quite frankly, at what we have to do with all of the trails and all of our parks. So if the county is able to give us that guidance tomorrow, we will just follow that. If not, we'll probably have some further guidance on that. But until then, we have Runyon closed. Other city parks continue to be open, but our rec centers are closed, our programs are closed, our senior feeding is closed as well. Obviously, our pools are closed as well.
I know you parked Griffith Park last weekend, but obviously that's not happening. How are you going to supplement your exercise?
I don't know. I guess, like I said, I'll just have to do that Navy workout that I do in place. I've done, with my exercise group, we're all in each other's living rooms working out on a Zoom meeting these days, 3 days a week. So I guess that'll have to suffice. Thank you. Next question.
Thank you. We have a follow-up question from Claudia Paschuta with KNX Radio. Please go ahead.
Thank you. I just wanted to ask if you foresee the city laying off employees at any point because of the economic hit it's going to take during the crisis.
No, we don't have any plans to lay anybody off to exacerbate a crisis that already will be tough enough. That is a downward spiral. We feel confident, just as some employers are able to, that we can get through these months with our employees and with the resources that we have. That should be the last thing that we do, especially as we're asking workers to do incredible, courageous acts in areas they might not have worked in before. For our firefighters and police officers and others, absolutely not. They need, I think the city needs those people more than ever before.
Thank you, and I'll turn it back to the mayor for any closing comments.
Okay. Again, thank you everybody for tuning in. I'm going to say a few words in Spanish as well, and I'll see everybody else tomorrow. All right, we're going to switch out interpreters and then we'll begin. Muy buenas tardes, Los Ángeles, y gracias por venir otra noche. Estoy haciendo todo lo posible para ayudar y asegurar que todos los angelinos permanezcan protegidos y sanos y tengan todos los recursos disponibles durante estos enormes cambios a nuestra economía, nuestras comunidades y nuestras vidas. Por eso, hemos tomado medidas importantes para mantenerlos dentro de sus casas. Pero aunque hagamos todo lo posible al nivel local, necesitamos que nuestros líderes en Washington nos apoyen en esta crisis. Tienen que parar sus disputas bipartidistas y colaborar para lograr un paquete que proteja a los trabajadores, apoye a las empresas, inviertan en nuestro sistema de salud y calmar nuestra ansiedad sobre el futuro. Hoy hemos recibido una pequeña esperanza de Washington y gracias a nuestros líderes finalmente por su acción. Un paquete enorme de $2 trillones para fortalecer la seguridad económica y la salud pública de nuestro país. Aunque no es un paquete perfecto, es un buen paso adelante. Este proyecto de ley incluye una gran inversión en los gobiernos locales como Los Ángeles, el condado, las ciudades del condado de Los Ángeles y estatales para cubrir gastos relacionados a nuestra respuesta a COVID-19. También aumentará beneficios de desempleo y necesitamos estos beneficios ahora, agregando más dinero para apoyar a los trabajadores quienes han sentido un gran impacto por esta crisis y dará un alivio directo para las familias trabajadoras y préstamos de emergencias para pequeñas empresas. Es un gran proyecto de ley y continuaremos trabajando con nuestros contrapartes en Washington durante todo el proceso. Si tu patrón ha cortado tus horas de trabajo o cerrado su lugar de trabajo, por favor, aplica para beneficios de desempleo del Estado inmediatamente en la página web edd.k.gov. Puedes encontrar ayuda navegando el proceso en uno de nuestros centros WorkSource o llamando al 311. Y recuerda, hace unos días lanzamos el portal de trabajos para ayudar a las personas desempleadas a encontrar trabajo y otros recursos durante esta crisis en lajobsportal.org, lajobsportal.org. La ciudad sigue tomando medidas para promover la sana distancia y estas medidas están funcionando. Estamos haciendo lo que debemos, pero también estamos evaluando la situación cada día. Esta mañana cerré el Cañón Runyon y estamos considerando cerrar más lugares de recreación al aire libre este fin de semana. Este cañón es uno de nuestros mayores tesoros en Los Ángeles, pero vimos este fin de semana que había demasiada gente allí y no lo podemos mantener abierta en este momento. También estoy anunciando una nueva orden de emergencia muy importante a usted y sus familias. Efectivo inmediatamente, los departamentos de la ciudad pueden tomar cualquier acción necesaria para comprar suministros, materiales, equipos y mano de obra necesarios para proteger la vida, la salud o la propiedad. Esto es un gran paso. Significa que más empleados de la ciudad pueden obtener equipo personal y desinfectante de manos y guantes, todo lo que necesitan para protegerse mientras siguen el trabajo de mantener a nuestra ciudad operando, como arreglando las luces de la calle, recogiendo la basura, cortando árboles y limpiando las calles. Ustedes merecen estos servicios y continuaremos a proveer esto. También hemos asegurado que el Departamento de Transporte detenga el aumento de multas por 60 días y todos recibirán una extensión de pago hasta el 1 de julio. Y como algunos quizás necesiten renovar su registración de automóvil ahora, empezando esta semana, la ciudad no va a remolcar o dar infracciones a vehículos con la registración vencida. Estamos en esto juntos. Estamos liderando juntos. Nunca he estado más orgulloso de esta ciudad y sus residentes. Gracias por sus acciones. Gracias por su participación en este. Estos son tiempos difíciles y habrá más días por llegar, pero nunca he dudado del espíritu, generosidad y poder de nuestra ciudad. Su ciudad está aquí para ustedes en cada momento. Quédense protegidos, quédense en buena salud, quédense en casa. Fortaleza y amor, Los Ángeles. Y hasta mañana. Until tomorrow, thank you all. May God bless you and keep you.